to 7th Grade Mustache. On today's episode, we'll be speaking about the invisible flamethrower. 5G transmitters are installed on utility poles, bus stop shelters, schools, federal land, apartment building rooftops. It uses high frequency bands that travel best in narrow and straight lines. The millimeter waves cannot penetrate physical objects. Newer antennas allow for pickup of the signals because they're smaller. 5G transmitters can now be found as near as every 2 to 10 homes. For those that travel frequently, you should check your hotel room upon arrival, and you will find a small 5G repeater inside your room. Use the internet, but unplug and turn off the Wi-Fi transmitter completely.
One of the things that we mentioned when you brought up 5G, we were talking about the electromagnetic signals. Something that bugged me for a while, and I brought it up. Remember that when they made that big push, because we live in Omaha, this big push to get rid of lead paint. You know they actually have internet paint now. You can paint your house with paint that keeps your signal in, so your neighbor can't get your signal. If you paint a certain room and you don't want that signal getting out, you can paint. You can paint it with that. But when you look it up, it's nothing but lead-based paint. It's literally lead-based paint. It's nothing but that reflects it back in or keeps stuff out. So, like I said, one of my theories I just really don't talk about much was I thought the big push to get rid of lead-based paint wasn't because of people's health or systemic poisoning. It was because of this. They knew they were coming out with 5G, and they wanted to make sure they can get to everybody's house. You know, they've already said the government can see in your house just using these different signals. So I'm like, look, we might need to go back to lead-based paint just to keep these motherfuckers out of our business.
Well, what you're not told about is the adverse side effects for health that show up immediately. Cancer clusters and kidney problems are found near cell towers. Microwave radiation damages DNA and chromosome structures. It shuts down the body's repair mechanisms. Lower libido and infertility in both male and females. Sperm count in adult men has dropped 50% in all developed countries. One of the side effects is diabetes, and they don't tell you that enough. It's so bad that in Latino women, it's as prevalent as 1 in 2. So every other Latino woman that you see in the city is running a high chance of getting diabetes at some point in life. That is fucking insane, dude.
It's just reversible. They got us eating these fucked up diets. And you said this years ago. Me and you also joke about, if it has a label, it's not good for you.
Right, but not the food. We're not talking about food here.
No, 100.
We're talking about the fact that beaming this you're in this electronic smog, and this electronic smog is causing your kidneys to try and filter out what is being done to it. So it's thinking that it's some type of substance or something, but it's electromagnetic energy because the body is electric.
Yes.
It's in that electricity, the circuits are the meridians and the conduit is the blood. And so the blood carries the electricity through the body. And when you are in a field of electronic smog, you're interrupting the human frequency, the base level human frequency. And by continuing to immerse yourself in this fog or increasing the intensity of the fog by going from 3G to 4G to 5G, then the body's systems begin to break down and you begin to have issues with kidneys in the form of kidney diabetes. And, you have to get dialysis to try and, live through a situation like that. Yeah. So another thing that they don't tell you about is how 5G is used for crowd control. It's one of the black box features that are listed in the research findings on 5G EMF transmission. The U.S. Department of Defense has developed a non-lethal crowd control device called Active Denial System, ADS, which emits a high-powered beam of 95 gigahertz waves at a target, producing a deeply unpleasant heating sensation. It uses radio frequency millimeter waves to penetrate the top 1/64th of an inch layer of skin on the targeted individual, instantly producing an intolerable heating sensation that causes them to flee.
I knew you was going there.
Listen, if you are unlucky enough to be standing there when it hits you, you will feel like your body is on fire. This feeling goes away when the target moves out of the beam. The sensation is intense enough to cause a nearly instantaneous reflex action of the target to flee from the beam. Think of that weapon as an invisible flamethrower. What happens when you get fire on you? Your nervous system reacts and you try to move away to get away from the flame. The same thing is happening. So this is invisible fire, an invisible flamethrower.
Hey, did you hear the article? This guy's a reporter. I don't want to lie. I can't remember exactly what his job was, but it's relevant to the conversation. So he thought he was hearing something. And he's like, look, I keep hearing something in my house, yada, yada, yada. And then he would get the hot sensation whenever he went to pick up his son. He's like, if I was near my son's crib. And so some kind of way he proved that somebody put a beam on him. So somebody put that 5G ultramagnetic, whatever it was. And he said, every time I go near my son's crib, I feel a hot sensation. And he described it. I forgot how they proved that he was telling the truth. And there's an article about it. I don't remember where it was. I think he's a reporter or he has an important job. But this crowd control you're talking about, they were doing it to him in his own home.
When you have what you call targeted individuals, and you hear the term gang stalking included with that, when they say people who look like government or military type individuals following them around. And sometimes these people will follow them to a restaurant and just sit at the table next to them and won't say anything, just to play a psychological game with these people. And they'll just follow these people around just to harass them. Then, as well as the gang stalking, you have the V2K or voice to skull technology, which was developed during the first Iraq War, when they were trying to beam messages into the brains of the Iraqi army. So what people need to understand is you make the situation worse by inviting more 5G devices into your home.
More technology is not better.
That's how we get to the topic of the Internet of Things. When you go to Best Buy, when you go to an appliance store, and you see a refrigerator, and this refrigerator has a camera that can look inside and it can show you what's in there without opening the door, that is running at a high frequency. And if you go around to the back of that refrigerator, it probably has a router or it has an Ethernet port or some type of connection to the internet. My refrigerator has no business being connected to the internet. It's simply not important for any of my devices. My washing machine doesn't need to be connected to the internet. None of it. And they sell it to you as a convenience. So you have a smart house. I'm going to tell y'all right now, you don't want a smart house. You don't want a smart house. Google Nest is spying on you. They have been sued many, many times because there's a microphone in there that's records your conversations, and it gathers this data quote unquote, and it sells it to third party companies. And then your television does the same thing. I tell people all the time, don't get a smart TV. Don't say nothing important in front of that fucking TV. Don't say anything that you want to be private in front of that TV. As a matter of fact, it's in the manual. Halfway into the manual, it says, if you value your privacy, don't have confidential conversations in front of this television. What the actual fuck is going on?
Look, what it is that you're convinced that you need this, or that this is the next important thing. They got their claws on our children so well already.
Well, 5G is the most important part of the Internet of Things, and it's sold as a necessary component for driverless cars. Well, I already don't want that. I have no use for driverless cars, because with General McChrystal, in the story that ran in the Rolling Stone, and Jeremy, I think his name was Scahill, or whoever the reporter was, they got killed when they took control of his car and rammed it into a wall and killed him because he published that article in the Rolling Stone that was talking about President Obama at the time. The problem is that you have all these cars now that have all these features that can be hacked. That's why I tell people all the time, man, listen, if you're going to buy these newfangled cars with all this shit in it, disable a lot of the stuff they're considered add-on features. You know, I'm not talking about stuff that's going to like disable the car. No, I'm not nothing that fucks the basic functioning of the car. I'm talking about the things that report back to headquarters or the GPS in the car. You don't need a GPS in the car. You have it on your phone. You don't need all this extra shit. When you get in a Tesla, there's a computer screen, a fucking computer screen in there, man. That car is just a computer on wheels. And really, it's a microwave on wheels. Because I see these people at charging stations all the time, sitting in the car while it's charging. What do you think that's doing to your body?
Well, how about the explosions, the fires?
But that's what I'm saying. Like, but forget about all the fires and shit. I'm talking about just the dirty electricity that's in it. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's just so much that's going on with that car. And like, what if you get into a wreck? See, okay, cables have to be shielded. They have to be shielded on the inside. Your coax cable, Comcast cable, the shit you grew up with, the fucking coax cable coming out of the backyard into the house, into the cable box.
Shielding on it.
That's a shielding cable. Once that shielding is frayed, then you have RF, dirty electricity, radio frequency energy spilling into your home. Now, if your car, your Tesla or electronic car, gets into an accident and one of those cables gets exposed, so now you have this EMF energy, dirty electricity that's spilling into your car. And then you wonder, man, why am I always so tired when I'm driving this car? Why I'm so tired because it's boiling the cells of your body.
It's microwaving you from the inside. Look, if you guys don't believe in this dirty electricity, okay, when we were in college, we were hooking our own cable and stuff up. Enough people were hooking up cable without proper cable wires. All you had to do was stick a key, like stick a key to the little cable outlet on the back of your TV. It would pick up signals. You didn't have to have cable. That many people were using unofficial cable. You know what I'm saying? So you don't think it's bleeding out because you can't see something does not mean it's not there, because it's undetectable. So when we warn people about this 5G, which we've been warning for a long time, it was a big thing during the whatever you want to call it, because people were telling you that some of these symptoms are literally 5G making you sick, and nobody wanted to believe that. And it's just I never thought how important it was to keep our old people around, because they're the ones explaining these things to us that in real time, how it happened in 1986 and how it happened in 1992, because whenever you have a conversation, people try to tell you that this technology has gotten better. It hasn't gotten better. It's gotten faster, but it's not gotten safer. And the other thing, when you were naming off different buildings that have 5G towers on them, I was saying schools. When you look at the top of these schools, or if you use your EMF reader on your phone, because you can download that, you'll see that literally they're on top of schools. And I'm like, well, is that healthy?
Dude, so when I was a kid, I would always look for radio towers.
Yep, we all did.
You would see the red flashing lights they would have on there to prevent helicopters and airplanes from smashing into them. So 2 nights ago, I was out of town and I was staying at a hotel, and I'm walking from the car to the room, and I look up, and there's a fucking 5G tower right there. I'm like, oh, fuck. It was right behind the fucking hotel, man. And this motherfucker was like 7 stories tall. I'm like, damn it. I gotta sleep right here next to this bullshit. Fuck. So, the notion of allowing tech innovation with little oversight is thinly masked fascism. And it really is, because they're the ones that's selling this shit to you, but they don't want to tell you the truth, and they'll do everything that they can to shadow ban and cover up any conversation about how harmful this stuff is. Because 5G is indeed harmful. Is there any way to protect yourself against it? Yes. You simply have to understand how 5G works and what interrupts and defeats its signal. A Faraday cage is made up of metals like copper, aluminum, and steel. Now let me stop for a second and share with y'all the first time I saw real deal Faraday cages. So I had this job where I would transport data assets for computer companies. And so that would involve me going to their facility, some internet startup company, going into the white room where the servers are. And I would get like a bunch of servers and I'd put them on a truck and I would take them to another location. So one time I had to drive, I flew to Dallas, Texas, a suburb of Dallas. And I drove the truck to the location. It was AT&T. And this thing was like this huge metal machine. It was about 1,400 pounds. And like wrangling that shit was a motherfucker. But I did it. It was no problem. I drove it from Dallas, Texas, all the way to Atlanta. When I get to the AT&T facility in Atlanta, it looks like some G.I. Joe building. It's a trip. So I get it into the building and we get it into the basement. And we go down into the basement and there's a laboratory in the basement. And in this basement, in this laboratory, was this room. And it was full of Faraday cages. Not one, there had to be about 25 Faraday cages. And what it looked like was a wooden, it was the size of a Home Depot shed, but like 3 times as large. And it was cedar wood, and it had it had copper and gold metal for all of the metal on the door and the hinges. The door hinges were custom made copper. I've never seen copper door hinges before. And all of the embellishments on the outside were gold. This was money. Real
it was out of place
money.
Too. You're talking about another technology, but do you see a wooden box with
a wooden
copper
box
and gold
with copper and gold, and then it had like a window in the front you could look into it to see if somebody's in there, and it had copper mesh on it. I'm like, look at this shit. Dude, it was some cool shit because you never ever get to step into a room and see stuff like that, and I did. So the guy that I was asking all kind of questions, and he was answering all of them, and he said, "Here, take your phone and walk into this room and shut the door." I had about maybe 3/4 of the bars before I walked into that room. When I walked into that room and I shut the door, nothing. It was dead. Nothing. No signal. It was a brick. And I'm like, isn't that interesting? And that, ladies and gentlemen, was a Faraday cage. A real deal one, custom built to kill signals. And I'm like, this is how you do it. So then I came across Faraday fabric. And you can find it online. Anti-RFID and anti-scan wallets are for sale online. The wallets are lined with this Faraday fabric.
Hey, Roscoe, I know there's something else. I thought you would talk about this, but you haven't. You know they have these T-shirts where they have a design on the front that messes up the facial recognition. Instead of looking at your face, it goes to the design on the T-shirt and tries to recognize it and will not look at your face. I thought you would have had one of those by now.
Well, we hadn't gotten to that yet, so. Conductive clothing can also form a protective Faraday cage. Some electrical linemen wear Faraday suits, which allow them to work on live, high-voltage power lines without risk of electrocution. The suit prevents electric current from flowing through the body, and it has no theoretical voltage limit. Wow. Linemen have successfully worked even the highest voltage lines safely with these suits. Elevators and other rooms with metallic conducting frames and walls simulate a Faraday cage effect, leading to a loss of signal and dead zones for users of cellular phones and radios and other electronic devices that require external electromagnetic signals. During training, firefighters and other first responders are cautioned that their two-way radios will probably not work inside elevators to make allowances for that. The scan room of a magnetic resonance imaging or MRI machine is designed as a Faraday cage. This prevents external RF radio frequency signals from being added to data collected from the patient, which would affect the resulting image. Technologists are trained to identify the characteristic artifacts created on images should the Faraday cage be damaged, such as during a thunderstorm. Very interesting. All this magnetism and electricity makes me think of Magneto. X-Men 90. Shout out X-Men 97. A microwave oven uses partial Faraday shielding on 5 of its interior 6 sides as a partial Faraday cage, consisting of a wire mesh on the 6th side, which is a transparent window, to contain electromagnetic energy within the oven and to protect the user from exposure to microwave radiation. Check this out. Some buildings, such as prisons, are constructed as Faraday cages because they have reasons to block both incoming and outgoing cell phone calls by prisoners. So, in researching this topic, I came across a product called the 5G Micro Shield. It works with cell phones. It uses a smart card that is using a holographic scalar coding, HSC, under special conditions in order to create an effective dynamic protection field around the smartphone user. I'm going to say that again. It uses a smart card that is using a holographic scalar coding, HSC, under special conditions in order to create an effective dynamic protection field around the smartphone user. It is activated specifically by the presence of harmful EMFs. It functions continuously from the moment it is applied on your smartphone, creating an 80-inch radius protection bubble, read that as force field, with additional benefits of prolonging battery life and preventing phone overheating. So this thing creates a force field around it. I always wanted to know, like, when they would come up with force fields. You know what I'm saying? And like, could you make your own force field? I haven't tested it, so I don't know if it's actually effective, but I thought that would sound like some cool shit, though.
Since you were 4 or 5 years old and watched your first Buck Rogers, Star Wars, whatever, you've always wanted a force field. For me, the way it inspired me was Trailbreaker, the Transformer. Remember, he had a force field. So yeah, everybody has thought about a force field. Don't know what I'm gonna do with it, but you've thought about it.
Oh, I got all types of fucking plans for a force field.
Oh yeah, that motherfucker, for sure. Work security. You know what I'm saying? Come on.
But see, a lot of people get freaked out when they hear about this crowd control technology and how they can use it against you and control you. Yeah, here's the thing though. Okay, you freak out for a second, but then it's like, all right, if a person just punched me, how do I defend myself against that? You move out the way, you evade, you block, you strike back. Figure out how to do those things. in
how
this
much you think?
scenario.
How much stuff do you think DARPA has like that that's just not on the open market,
Oh, a
or
gang of shit, dude. A gang of
yeah,
shit.
or they're talking about the energy weapon, that big laser they got over there in England right now. They got it on one of their subs, and people
Dude, the Navy has had those on their ships for the longest time.
well, allegedly
A
they didn't,
railgun.
but yeah. Well, no, railgun's different. A railgun is basically just a bunch of magnets to send something at something. But even with those situations, you and I both know they've had things for 25, 30 years before we see it. Excuse me. I think that's the biggest thing that and the last two interviews that I saw Billy Carson and I saw this other guy said the same thing. The technology they got down there in Antarctica is 50, 60, 100 years ahead of what we know. So basically,
That's
they just keep the
because
shit hit.
that's because they're not going through an approval committee, or they're only
No,
going for like through one maybe approval committee. Just like, here, make this shit so we can use it. It's not like, well, the regulations in the Senate and no. They're not doing any of that shit. That's why it gets greenlit
look,
so fast.
the big scary conversation was Hawaii, Maui, and the direct energy weapon they were using. Well, they're using the same exact weapon down in Venezuela right now. They got wildfires coming out of nowhere. Houses with blue roofs aren't getting burnt. The exact same situation. So when you see it again, the only reason we're not talking about it is it popped in the news for 2 days and it's been gone since. But they're still going through it. So I think that's when the news cycle drives you crazy, because what it's doing is controlling the narrative where, you won't put two and two together. You won't see that, hey man, this 5G is making people sick over here. How do you have motherfuckers in the middle of a jungle getting sick?
Listen,
You know,
when I knew that the fix was in, and that the public was super duper deep in a sleep, when the Iraq War happened, the second Iraq War with George Bush Jr., when that happened and this motherfucker was lying to the public every week, the story changed week after week after week. And people were so fatigued with the shit, they just stopped caring. And I'm like, do y'all not see this motherfucker lying every fucking week? Like this, there's a lie after lie.
It's a new enemy every week. Like
No,
it
but
was
it wasn't even like a different enemy. It was the reasons that they were given for why they
yeah,
were fighting changed every fucking week. And I'm
every
like,
week.
dude, you're just making shit up.
Like, do they have weapons of mass destruction or not? And they're like, they might. Fuck. Or it was. It's like when we grew up, and I always make this joke. We had Walter Cronkite. That nigga told you what was up, and you decided how you felt about it. Now they're just using this shit to manipulate you. And either you're for Israel, or you're against Palestine, or you're for this, and you're for.
But check this out. Here's the thing, though. We still manage to get information to each other without the internet.
Oh yeah, Arsenio Hall. How many times? Hey, did you see Arsenio Hall? It was on there. Look,
but not even that though. Like, we could still pass information to each other with tapes and fucking discs and CDs and memory cards. We could always pass information. So it makes me wonder, like, if social media were to go away, would we be okay? Yes. The answer is yes. Will we still have a method to communicate with each other? Yeah, because we would find a way.
We always have.
The way has always been there. So it's not a matter of like trying to create new ways. I'm like, just go back retro. Go back and figure out what cats was doing before you.
We're not even talking about books. Like, okay, there were several DVDs that me and you were trading. You know what I'm saying? In plain sight.
Loose change.
You would sit here like, hey, cuz, let me get a copy of that. Even when it came to Steve Coakley and his tapes, like, we were like, hey, man, I just made you a copy here. So there was good information getting out. You feel me? It was important information being disseminated. And you were, and the thing with Coakley, he told you what books he used to find it. These were books in your public library. You could go there, like, look, if you don't agree with me, nowadays, when somebody like, hey, cuz, Google it. If you don't think I know what the fuck I'm talking about, Google it. That ain't reliable.
Yeah, but see, you have to stop using that word as a verb. Seriously.
Go search.
Every time you use that word, you're putting a penny into that bank account. Stop doing that. And
I think
But see, the thing is it's so easy to do it, but you have to check yourself. I mean, you know, it's you have to have that same discernment that you have when you avoid eating certain types of food. I'm like, all right, cool. I don't want no GMO. I can't eat this bullshit. You know what I'm saying?
This could give me indigestion. Well, all I was saying is the worst thing
No,
about
no, they don't give you indigestion. It makes motherfuckers allergic to peanuts
yeah,
because glyphosate and Monsanto is what got people fucked
man,
up.
like these conversations, these are the regular conversations that we have. This is just deep. But all I was saying is that if you say the word Google, you don't think your phone just starts listening. You don't think your iPhone or your Android just start. As soon as you say that word Google,
Yeah,
okay.
stop saying the word, dude.
All we're saying is that you are giving them access to your home. And they're telling you every time you see these spies, every time you talk to these spies, what do they tell you? The first thing they tell you is they don't need a microphone to hear into your house. They don't need anything to see what you're doing. They just see if you're naked or if you're doing this just by flying over, just from your heat. So stop falling for it. You
Yep.
don't need new technology.
All right.
You know, because
So
that's how they get you.
for those of you that are still listening at this point and still have doubts, check out these U.S. patents that you can look up. U.S. patent number S as in Sam 6470214. It was a patent that was created in the year 2000. It is for a targeted energy weapon. It is a pulsated manipulation that targets the central nervous system. It is a method and device for producing a desired mental state based on the control of magnetic waves. In a separate patent from the year 2000, it is for the use of EMF waves to induce a desired emotional state, sleeplessness, and sexual arousal. 2 years later, in 2002, the United States Air Force received a patent for the remote projection of intelligible sound into a targeted consciousness, also known as voice-to-skull or V2K technology. In 2013, a patent was awarded for a technique that controls the brain state by placing engineered EMF patterns into the AC electrical wiring of a building. What?
They can already use the wires that are there. They don't have to hardwire it or use anything else. They can use what's already in the foundation.
1 year later, a patent was awarded for the technique and technology that allows EMF waves to be controlled and to be added to a musical file. Now, that goes all the way back to the 1960s, where they would say that if you played certain rock records backwards, you could hear satanic messages and things like that.
Subliminal messaging has been around since almost 100 years now.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, but let's go back to ADS for a second. The active denial system. Consider another use for it, that it can be used instead of spraying people with this invisible flamethrower. You can use it as an invisible fence to keep people inside an area. Think concentration camps. So, real quick, I wanted to give a shout out to the movie Enemy of the State, because this movie that came out in 1996 foretold the future, and it showed how a character in the movie who represented an everyday person who could have their life completely obliterated with fake news and espionage and spying. They created lies about this person and ruined his life. His professional career was ruined. And it was an entire fabrication. So now you layer this with all these layers of technological manipulation. So then, if you decide to not play the game, they have many different ways they can come at you. And the argument will be, oh, well, you know, they don't use that technology on Americans. Yes, they do. Because in the summer of 2020, when there was riots and protests in front of the White House, there was a blackout of cell phones. There was an EMF, short-range EMF pulse that knocked out everybody's cell phones. And there was a sound weapon that was used to control people in the area in front of the White House. So there was non-lethal weapons being employed. And there was very little reported about this in the press. So these weapons are being used on people all the time.
Look, the big issue is that because we haven't heard about it, we see the results. We see the outcome. But since we haven't heard about it, we haven't read about it, I trust my government. No, you don't. You don't. Look, I tried to send you an article earlier about, this happened in Cuba about something. Let me look it up.
You talking about the Havana syndrome?
No, microwave weapons are prime suspect of U.S. embassy workers.
Yes, that's the Havana syndrome.
No, this one's recent. Havana syndrome was from the 50s and 60s.
No. The Havana syndrome is from the year 2021, I think.
This one's 2018.
That was the one. That was the one. Yeah, Havana syndrome.
New York Times, and basically they're saying that people were getting sick. They had headaches. They were on fire. It was physical warfare, and they believe that it was China, even though this took place at the American embassy in Cuba. But even this article says suspected microwave weapons. It's like I said. Just because they don't have a label on them, just because they don't sit here and brag about it, does not mean that these countries don't have these weapons, and they're not afraid to use them. And they don't. And I think the biggest issue we got is how large a scale are we talking about? How many of these people that you think have mental health issues are really probably might be combating some shit that we don't understand. But
then also consider how they could make you appear to have these issues. And they can, okay, if you torture a person with V2K technology, beaming thoughts and words into a person's head, they can appear like they're losing their fucking mind when they were just a normal-ass person the other day. But they're being pushed off the edge.
Yeah, they're like, these words I'm hearing, is this God talking? Or worse, on the flip side, they're using a microwave weapon on you. They're baking you from the inside. You'll be doubting yourself. I got to take my clothes off. I got to do this. I can't sleep at night. It just says impetus. So my dick ain't working, but I'm 27 years old. These things will make you think that you're crazy. And then who's going to believe you? How many people don't report it? How many of these people are pushed over the edge by this? And let's not leave out the most obvious one. How about somebody commit suicide because of this shit? And I'm not making a lot of that situation. What I'm saying is these are the things that these agencies, that these countries, that these enemies of you and our state will do just to get what they want.
Well, there was that 60 Minutes interview, I think a couple of weeks ago. There was a guy talking about electronic harassment. Did you catch that story?
No, I didn't, but I'm completely aware of it.
Yeah. So, but also there was this recent news story that talked about how the Justice Department is allowing YouTube, or they're using YouTube to go after people who watch certain videos, quote unquote, on YouTube. Now, what people have to understand is that they shadow ban and suppress so much stuff that if there is anything left on there, it's pretty much well-known or harmless stuff. So if that is all that is on YouTube, then what kind of people are you going after? And even worse, you can change the definition of what you see as a threat from week to week.
But how about the algorithm? How about if the algorithm suggests stuff and you start watching it? Is that not influencing you? And I'm not saying that people are weak-minded. What I'm saying is, we had this talk. We were talking about, can you imagine some foreign citizens who were influenced by the CIA/FBI, and these guys weren't thinking about blowing something up, but the FBI kind of goaded them into it, and then they went from there. They got serious about it. So how is that any different from the algorithm suggesting, hey, Roscoe, when's the last time you put a bomb together? And for whatever reason, and you see one or two videos, then you might, that's kind of interesting. Then you might Google a couple. All of a sudden, they're saying that you're a terrorist or that you're dangerous. But the initial suggestion came from the algorithm.
So here's another idea. So, they talk about how people want to get these chip implants and, placed into their heads so that they can have, greater mental capacity and have all these, abilities unlocked. And, so there's a flip side to that. They could take remote control over your brain and your body through these weapons that we're talking about. So if they have a patent on how to control your mental state, and they have non-lethal weapons that can make you feel like you're on fire, they can, at the same time, they can use both of those weapons. They can put a thought into your head. They can say you are possessed by the devil and you are in hell and you're on fire. And they just turn that weapon on and your skin is on fire. You're losing your mind. Because then you don't know what's real anymore. And then here's the even crazier part. They can take control over your TV and beam controlled broadcasts or pre-recorded broadcasts that they use AI to create and play that through your television. Imagine all that at one time. That is living hell for a person.
Hey, how about this? How about if you get that? Say you get that brain chip, right? Suppose it costs $10,000 and you can't afford to make the payments on it. Are they gonna repossess it? How about this? How about they repossess your whole body? And now I remember when I was a kid and people would go to debtor's prison, like in the Bible. Well, how can you get out of debt if you're in prison and you can't earn no money? So what's to say? What is the leverage they would use? Well, you have a brain implant, but you can't afford that. But we'll put another neural link into your hand. We'll do another neural link. Next thing you know, your whole body ain't yours anymore. There's so many problems with this shit.
Not only that, there's people that are outside of your circle, that are not your immediate friends, that are so willing to get. These people are, oh man, they don't have to, you know what, man, to fight a war, they don't have to have people sign up and go to boot camp. They can make people get up, program them. They can split their brain into a hemisync type of shit. They can beam a program into their mind that trains them to be a soldier while they're sleeping. In the same way that people talk about being abducted by aliens. Right? What if that is a complete cover for some other shit that's happening where people are being controlled, and so if they do need soldiers to go and fight, then you'll just wake up and your normal consciousness is shut off and you go and you fight in this battlefield and you're being controlled and you have no idea. Now, if you die, you die. But if you make it back, they don't let you wake up from this nightmare until you're back in your house, back in your bed. After you've been flown overseas, been over there for months at a time, lost all kind of weight, looking crazy. And then you wake up 3 months later in the bed like it was the night before, and you look like shit and wonder why you got, 50 pounds of weight loss and PTSD.
Your body has muscle memory.
And you got PTSD from when a car backfires down the street.
But don't know why. But like I said, we chuckle, but we know good and damn well it's a possibility. And we, last two podcasts, we keep bringing up. They keep saying that the weapons and the technology we have down in Antarctica is light years away. Half this shit probably exists. Again, we're talking theoretical, but this shit is together. They got it. They can use it whenever they want.
Check this out. There's a TV show. It's called Severance. Have you ever seen it?
Nope.
So it's not written by Ben Stiller, but he directs like the first season. And it's about this guy that he signed this non-disclosure agreement to have his consciousness cut in half so that when he would go to work for this corporation, imagine going to work for the people you work now, and when you walk into the elevator out of the lobby, as soon as the elevator door closes, your exterior consciousness, your exterior consciousness cuts off, and you're your work self. And you're doing all kind of shit at work that you have no idea what goes on. When you walk out of that elevator at the end of your shift, you get in your car and you go home.
Shit you don't approve of, but you're willingly taking part in it.
That shit's wild. Because you could be doing anything. And you could be signing over all kinds of stuff. But the fact that you're conscious of the stuff, you have no idea what type of oaths you're taking, or what type of covenants you're signing or becoming a part of. Dude, all of these things are actually possible. Now, the problem is people think, oh, that's crazy stuff. No, you lack creativity. You lack the lateral thinking to see these things as being possible. Because if I am talking about this shit, that means think tanks in the Pentagon and military industrial complex have been talking about this shit already.
You can't limit your enemy like that. You know, you're limiting by your lack of creativity. And that's what Roscoe's saying is like, look, you know, you're going to sit here and say it can't be done, and they're like 10, 20 years past being done. It's happening. You know what I'm saying? How many of these people talk about missing time and space travel and alien abduction? What if it ain't aliens? What if it's just your government like fucking around?
Dude, this shit is wild. But the crazy part about all this is that you have to really take your mind there. Now, I brought up the enemy of the state because the supporting character in that movie was played by Gene Hackman, a character called Brill. And Brill was an ex-intelligence officer, right? But he lived a stoic monk lifestyle because he knew what they were capable of. At one point in the movie,
he wanted his peace.
Yes, and at one point in the movie, Will Smith yells at him for blowing up the house they were sitting in because Will Smith made a phone call. That guy was on some heat type of shit, meaning whatever it is that you have, you got to be able to walk away from it in a moment's notice. And that guy was. But he had a Faraday cage. He called it the jar. And it was the room that he could go in and no signals could come in and out of that room. But earlier we talked about Faraday fabric and how you can buy this fabric and you can take the drywall out of your house. Let's do some remodeling. Take the drywall out of take the drywall off the wall that's facing the inside of the house, and put it a layer of the Faraday fabric all the way around the room, and then put the drywall back up, put the mud on, and then paint it, and then you've got a Faraday cage in your house. And I'm going to tell you something, and everybody has to be willing to sacrifice some of these things. You may have to just go without half of the house where you can't use your phone. And you're thinking, oh, well, I can't live without that. Well, guess what? You love being on the plantation. But if you know that your phone will work in this half of the house, but it won't work in that half of the house, or it won't work in the basement, you know what I'm saying, but it'll work upstairs, you have a place of peace. What you have bought yourself, what you have created for yourself, is a sanctuary, a analog sanctuary. Say it with me, y'all. Analog sanctuary. Because that is a place where you can go and there's no footprint of who you are that can be bought and sold and used against you. There was a recent interview on the show, and Dame Dash, the hip hop mogul, was talking about how YouTube and Spotify and all these platforms that people publish their videos on there's a type of revenue that they're benefiting from that you only get pennies of, if even that, called PGM. And he talked about how people have no idea how this stuff works because they don't ask how much they are making off you. You know, people always want to know, how much can I make? The question is not how much can you make, it's how much are you making off of me? Because that's going to tell me how much I'm making, or I can make, if I know how much you're making off of me.
It's more important how much are they making off of you, and people don't see it that way. They're so excited to have this little bit of fame or notoriety or influence, if you will, that they don't even check their own numbers or know how to.
That bubblegum shit is what everybody is so hypnotized by. It's like, oh, it's the porn and the loud music and the flash and the fame. I'm like, yo, stop being of the world. You can be in the world, but don't be of the world.
Of the world. You hear it all the time. Look, even when you see who's in charge of the global music for YouTube, a guy that's been robbing people for years, been robbing everybody, but all of a sudden you put him in charge of music because they want him to continue what he does best, and that's steal.
But dude is a culture vulture. He's a culture vulture. You know,
100%.
He's been called out for it. You know, and I'm like, because you know, I would see him at these like Def Jam gatherings. I'm like, who is this guy? Why is this the guy? You know what I'm saying? Like, why this guy? Like, this dude is not black. He don't know shit about black music. You know, he talks
no culture about him.
Nothing, no culture whatsoever. He don't even talk like he's trying to immerse himself into the culture. He talks like a colonizer.
It's a difficult conversation to have because people are willingly walking down that road for a little bit of, again, fame, or I want to rap, I want to be a comic, I want to be an actress, I want to do this. And
the crazy thing is, this dude came out of nowhere.
No, the crazy thing is, we keep hearing these stories how people are being abused sexually and mentally.
Or how he said on a microphone, I wasn't leaving the house until I came away with a pinprick.
Yeah, until I pricked his finger. Yeah, look, and when I told you, I'm like, how come nobody else is complaining about this? I'm like, Roscoe, am I the only one that heard it?
No, because whoever that person is, we don't need to say it, they made a deal with a Khazarian. That's why. That is, he signed a contract in blood.
A pinprick is a term for a Faustian deal. That means you sold your soul.
A pinprick meaning like you picked your finger so you can get blood to come out.
Finger to sign a contract in blood. And I'm like, I've never heard that. Okay, let me clarify what I'm saying. I've never heard it used in that manner. I'm familiar with it. We all are. We all say that it started when we were, kids in the 80s. The heavy metal dudes were making deals with the devil. But you've never heard anybody just say it. So I wasn't leaving until I pricked his finger. Pricked his finger? That's not a term. That's not a regular thing. Pricking a finger means that you got blood to sign a contract in blood, and your soul is at stake. So, nah, motherfucker, that's not a normal statement. That is bothersome at best.
So, coming back to the invisible flamethrower, this world that we live in now is so dangerous. And it's dangerous because everything looks safe to sleepy people. You know, the problem is there's so many sleepy people. If you think about this, we're all drivers. And a lot of people are falling asleep or have fallen asleep at the wheel.
I think one of the big problems is people have a desired outcome. Once you have a desired outcome, then you've already made up your mind to be lied to. You're allowing yourself to be lied to or manipulated. You know what I'm saying? Like literally, of course I want things to end well, but when your desire for things to end a certain way is so much great, you should be observing. You should be investigating. You should be doing these things. You should not be, I want this so badly. Because the next thing you know, you're pricking your finger and you got a puffy party. And you stayed late because you hear all these niggas say, "Hey, I left the party early." Well, you stayed late at the
All
puffy
right.
party, my nigga.
All right. So that's another thing is you can't take pictures with everybody.
Oh man.
Here's the thing. If you take pictures with somebody, they can accuse you of doing some shit or being someplace that you
Intertwined.
worked,
Entanglement.
that you spend time with these people. Now, can't nobody accuse you of that shit if they don't have pictures of you with those people. Now, I'm not talking about deep fake or any of that bullshit, because you can scan and tell if this stuff is created fake. But
Yeah.
I'm talking about real photographs. Like, hey, can I get a picture? And I'm like, I'll shake your hand. You know, I'll dap you up, but like, no pictures. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know these people. Like, I don't know these dudes. I don't party with these motherfuckers.
It's craziness because people are, their desire for celebrity or be near celebrity is enough for them to throw away everything they work for.
It's what I feel like is everybody's suspicion level is outdated.
Oh, that's exactly what it is, and that's why the invisible flamethrower is effective. I don't need to see my enemy, but I'm being hurt. I'm submitting to some shit. I'm letting them intimidate me. But yeah, that threat assessment being outdated, that's some deep shit. Because you still worry about somebody breaking in your house when they've been living with you. They already broke in. You got their technology. You got their equipment in your house already. You don't have to break in. It just told you they can use the wires that are already in the wall to do this. They're not doing anything extra other than turning some shit on.
But think about the things that we've been thinking about. So now, to have some peace, you got to have a uniform in the closet that you can put on that can deflect. Basically, you're going to look like them dudes that work on the power lines. You know what I'm saying? You're going to have one of them outfits to throw on.
Personal Faraday cage. You got to have
Personal Faraday outfit. You know what I'm saying? Like uniform to put on so you can walk through that shit and bust a cap in them motherfuckers. It's crazy, dude, because you have to think. This is the crazy thing. All right. So to borrow a line from the movie Body of Lies, it's hard for the guys from the future to see guys who live in the past. Because guys who live in the future use technology and can only see you if you're using that technology. But they can't see you if you live like it's 100 years ago. Now, the key is you had to be a hell of a gear shifter. And you got to know when to shift up into high technology and shift down into low technology. The problem is everybody is always trying to find a higher gear to keep up with the Joneses. And all you keep seeing is their taillights getting further and further down the street while you hitting the gas, steady trying to reach these motherfuckers.
Everybody's convinced that the new shit is better. New shit is just new. It ain't always better. Same thing with pussy. New pussy ain't always better than the pussy you had already.
Well, for show pussy, they got songs about for show pussy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for show pussy's better than mo pussy. So you know what I'm saying? Sometimes, like shit, I don't need to meet nobody. I don't know nobody else. I don't need anyone else draining my life essence. I don't know what nobody else.
You do all the finer things. Infatuated by what money brings. Yeah, dude.
Look,
crazy.
It's real.
But this is what I'm saying. Like overall, you cannot act like it's 2014. Either you're gonna live in 1984 or 1985, or you're gonna live in 2055. You gotta shift between the two. You know, you can't be thinking like it's right now. You have to be thinking
using
ahead
that technology
of them.
to give you a better life. That's the issue. They're not using technology to improve their lives. They're using technology to improve their position in the world, but not make their lives better.
I'm going to tell you something real simple that you can do right away. Each day, after you're done searching for the information that you need to find, put your phone down, turn off your computer screen, and go do something else. Go do something else where you're looking at the sky, you're playing with your dogs, you're spending some time with your spouse, you're working on something. Yes, you're working on something that allows you to use your creativity. I heard something today that really made me think. And they were talking to this guy who's very successful at music publishing. And he asked him, what is your definition of making it? Not being famous, not being rich, he said, but making it. The guy's response was, if I am happy when I'm making music, then I've made it. And I said, oh, wow, that's powerful, because I can tell you, when I'm working on creative projects, I'm happy because I'm doing something that allows me to get these ideas out of my head and in front of me.
And I mean, when you're creating something, that's your closest to God you can be, because God's
amen.
creator. So you're bringing something into this world that didn't exist prior, or you're altering, or you're improving. But you know how it is.
But that's something you should always fight for, despite the fact that, yes, we want to use this to pay our bills. That's cool, but get really fucking good at it, because what's going to happen is that you'll get so good at it that the blessings will come to you. Just keep doing it. I don't give a shit how old you are, because it's never too late. Just keep doing it. Do not give up. But to wrap this up, I'm going to tell you there is a lot of shit going on, and we're living in dangerous times. And these motherfucking invisible flamethrowers will burn you the fuck up with no visible correlation whatsoever. So you need to understand how this shit works. Get yourself some Faraday fabric. Learn how to combat this shit. Turn off that fucking Wi-Fi router before you go to sleep every night. And fucking unplug and relax, but be smart about it. Look, that's all I got. We out. Peace.
Holla back.